I tell you, it is not easy. It's not easy to go live 1 minute after Raw goes off the air prepared. But I think we got it covered for this episode. What's up, everyone? I am Don Tony. It is Monday night, about 10:40 p.m. Eastern, June 15th, 2026. Raw just went off the air. And guys, I'm telling you, the Woolah keeps calling out Brock Lesnar. Keep calling him out. Sounds like Tony Khan in WWE. Keep poking the bear. Keep poking the bear. Yeah, you're going to get your ass F5'd in Saudi Arabia. I think we all agree on that. Not a bad episode of Raw. I think it progressed quite nicely. One thing is great out of all of this is that since Io Sky did get the victory in the Queen of the Ring semifinal, that means that Rhea Ripley should be okay in time for SummerSlam. SummerSlam is still 7 weeks away. I mean, let's put it this way. Rhea Ripley's injury either was very severe, where strip title, surgery, or it was not going to be a serious issue. And the fact that Io Sky got the victory, listen, I've been saying this now for a couple of weeks. We picked up on it way before anywhere else. WWE planting lots of seeds and maybe sprouting some friends versus friends. That might be the theme going into the summertime. You might have Jey Uso versus Cody Rhodes. You may have Raquel Rodriguez versus Liv Morgan. You could have Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley. And think about it. Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan is not necessarily a match coming out of Queen of the Ring. But remember that little comment that Roxanne Perez said last week, I believe it was. This was something that we thought about for WrestleMania. If you remember back around the Elimination Chamber Royal Rumble time, that maybe Raquel Rodriguez goes on to Mania and then challenges Liv, because by doing that, especially at SummerSlam, you guarantee that the belt will stay within Judgment Day. The problem that I do have with that is what transpires afterwards. Let's just say Raquel earns a shot and challenges Liv. That's going to be quite awkward after the match is over with, because Judgment Day members don't normally fight Judgment Day members. It's not even like when JD McDonough had issues with this person and, just get it out of your system. Go in the ring and do what you got to do. Plus, if Liv loses that title to Raquel Rodriguez, that is going to be an extremely awkward situation. So personally, I think that match is the least likely to happen. Plus, you got to remember, Stephanie McCare is very, very close to a return. Very close to a return. And if you tuned into last night's sit down, we discussed the latest on CM Punk. He will be back, sooner than you think. Just right now, they have to get past the Sami Zayn, Gunther, Cody Rhodes situation. Don't know if that will have to go one additional match as a three-way, because Sami Zayn is going to be doing his antics on Friday SmackDown. But they're definitely planting lots of seeds for friend versus friend. And what really ends up happening now is what goes down Friday. What goes down Friday between Jey Uso and Javon Evans. And as we've discussed, and listen, I like to do a play on what could possibly happen. And you guys, you saw this little graphic that I made yesterday, and I still think that is going to happen. If you watch tonight's Raw, especially with Roman, it's kind of funny because we got into this yesterday about Jey Uso being forced to, or Jacob Fatu being forced to acknowledge Jey Uso. That was the whole conversation we had yesterday. Jacob Fatu is going to be forced to acknowledge Jey Uso. If you saw Raw tonight, everybody was acknowledging everyone. The fans acknowledged Roman. Roman wanted the fans to acknowledge Big Jim. Roman wanted the fans to acknowledge Jay. Jay wanted LA Knight to acknowledge him. Jacob Fatu only will acknowledge Roman Reigns. Like, it's like baby shit. But you kind of feel where this is going, where Roman may force Jacob Fatu to acknowledge your 2026 King of the Ring, Jey Uso. Listen, I'm not very thrilled if Jey Uso wins King of the Ring, but I understand it. With it being in Saudi Arabia, with it going into SummerSlam, you know, a lot of us that will complain doing shows and everything else, we're not the ones putting money in WWE's pockets. You got to look at that audience. You got to look at the crowds. And Jey Uso versus Cody Rhodes is a match that WWE has been wanting to do. So doing that at SummerSlam would spicing up Cody Rhodes a little bit as well. Because other than maybe CM Punk coming back early, you know, what do you do with Cody Rhodes next? Drew McIntyre is out of the picture. For anybody that isn't aware, Deadline put out a story today that Drew McIntyre is either already there or he's on his way to Spain. And he's filming a movie with Russell Crowe. I believe it's called The Last Druid. And listen, they're not going to be filming 7 weeks in Spain. He could film for 2 weeks and be done, and then come back to the States and have plenty of time to build up something for SummerSlam. But right now, his SummerSlam involvement is up in the air. It's very much up in the air. You know, you got to be very, very careful who you pay attention to, because you had WrestleVotes late last week saying that Drew McIntyre's return is imminent. Then you had PW Insider that said Drew McIntyre's return is not anytime soon. And we realized that Deadspin had put out an article that Drew was going to be appearing in a movie with Russell Crowe. And all you had to do was a couple of little Google searches, and you would have saw, you know, Variety and all these movie sites talking about how Russell Crowe's in Spain filming a movie. So now if all the other actors and actresses are in Spain, and then we learned late last week that Drew's going to be in a movie with Russell Crowe, gee, you think that Drew McIntyre is on its way to Spain also? You think so? I think so. So we will see what happens. We will see what happens. Thank you, Ray, for the kind words. I always had a motto here since 1997. I don't want to be first. I want to be right. And that's why, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, no one comes fucking close to what we do. I mean, right down to even just common sense. You see, the Janelle Grant Vince thing is the latest thing. Yesterday, we dived into that. We tried to do it as entertaining as possible, which is not easy to do, because I do believe that Janelle Grant was taken advantage of. I think none of us, even if we liked our M&Ms with peanuts, even if we like to eat outdated M&Ms with peanuts, even if we were like LA Beast here and we like to have 77-year-old M&Ms with peanuts, if you know what I mean. Shut up. Even if we were into that, I don't think any of us would be remotely prepared to have a relationship with Vince McMahon, a relationship with a billionaire. This is not simply like, do you want to veg out and watch Netflix tonight? Do you want to play Pacino? Would you like to play chess? I'll challenge you to a video game match. No, do you want to watch a movie? You know, no. In that billionaire world, Lord knows what the fuck goes on. I don't think she was prepared for it. I know gifts and money will numb a lot of pain. I do have sympathy for her. I really do. But at the same time, we don't know what was willing and what wasn't. And that's why, if you even see the thumbnails that I did here, you know, look at the thumbnails. All right. 3 days before the announcement that she was willingly, voluntarily going into arbitration, she puts out like a social media post talking about being a victim, talking about being abused, and talking about being this, and this, and then agrees to negotiate with her devil, agrees to negotiate with her trafficker, the person who committed crimes against her. And yeah, at the end of the day, and if you look at this picture closely, pay attention to the eyes, pay attention to her eyes, pay attention to her eyes. It was always about the moolah. It was always about the money. The money! It was always about the money, damn it. And I don't blame her. I don't blame her for one bit. She was entitled to that money. She accepted, it's not a world that we will ever understand. Whether you're on her side or his side or neutral, we will never understand that world. But I will tell you this. A lot of you checked out yesterday's show. By the way, much love to everybody who's with us live tonight. Thank you very much for spending some of your Monday night with yours truly. If you enjoy the show, hit the thumbs up. I normally don't push that, but I do understand that, if there's a lot of thumbs ups, YouTube will say, hey, this show's probably doing good. Maybe we should recommend it to others because we do want to pay some bills also, obviously. But, here's the thing. A lot of you knew yesterday I was going to have a conversation today with a reporter in Connecticut. I had a conversation with this young lady, not so young, but younger than me, with this young lady who's a reporter in Connecticut that was covering this case quite well. And she had got into some things about a year ago, not necessarily revealing, but putting pieces of the puzzle together, especially when it comes to the doctors that were involved and why things were being subpoenaed and why the doctor was reluctant in a lot of ways. She just made it very, very easy and to understand. So, I'm not going to plug her, name and stuff like that yet because the conversation we had today was purely off the record. But I just wanted to pick her brain about a couple of things that were going through my mind. Plus, from a year ago, she knew our stance about it, and that was being neutral. The funny thing is, yesterday, I played that 2-minute clip of Kevin I, God rest his soul, from January 29, 2024. And you listen to the last 2 minutes, and it's mind-boggling how on point we were. But the thing is, there was a 20-minute conversation about that. And right away, I get you suck the dick of Vince McMahon. Oh, you always supporting Vince McMahon. If you listen to that or watch that entire 20-minute clip of Kevin I 4 days after the case came out, 90% of what we said was negative about Vince McMahon. I mean, literally everything out of our mouth was negative. Here's the difference. When you're negative about something, but you still report it neutral, that to me is the right way of doing things. Problem is, you had so many people out there that reported it with a bias, insisted to you that this happened and it was factual. When they weren't there, they weren't in the bedroom, they weren't, in the cellular company intercepting the text messages and the phone calls. We don't know. But people tried to convince you that they did know. And, I was just throwing things back and forth, but I will tell you this. Very, very interesting development in this. It is not news yet, but word around the campfire is 3 words with Janelle Grant. And it's not, give me my money. It's fear and intimidation. And that kind of ties into what we talked about yesterday. Because yesterday we were saying, why did she settle? She was leading 9-0 in the top of the 9th inning. All she had to do was ride it out. And if the court decided it was going to arbitration, which we always knew it was, but if the court does decide that, then Janelle Grant, her lawyer, Ann Callis, could say, look, we have to respect the court. This is not the outcome we wanted. Everybody knows the truth, but unfortunately, we have to respect the court, and we are on our way to arbitration. Right before that announcement, she voluntarily agrees to do it. Why would you do that? Why would you go against all the women that were supposedly going to come out, all the women she was fighting for, the victims? In the end, you're agreeing to work out a contract dispute. It goes against everything up to this point. That's why you've seen no statement from Ann Callis, but she brought up that the fear and intimidation that if information were to come out. See, the thing is, and this is what one of the most important things I wanted to ask her, and I don't want to go on AI and Google stuff and get my answer. I wanted to ask someone who's really on the case. And I said, is it possible that the attorneys for Janelle Grant and the attorneys for Vince McMahon have additional evidence that just has not come out in the court yet because people have not been interviewed? And she said, absolutely. She says Janelle Grant's attorneys could have certain information that Vince McMahon has videos, if Vince McMahon has additional text messages, if Vince McMahon has other things, ultimately that could come out, and it will likely come out. And if it seems like he's got proof that could lead, and it goes to arbitration, all right, then what ends up happening is she could be forced to depose if the judge requires it. Vince could be forced to depose. And then you start bringing out additional details that haven't been out before, and it could paint her in a horrible light. So this was an opportunity where Ann Callis and those attorneys negotiated with Vince's attorneys that, look, let's finish it privately in arbitration. Privately means we ain't getting no more juice. We ain't getting no more juicy juice. We're not getting no more details. By agreeing to do it privately, this case is done. We're not getting anything else. And the most interesting thing about it, and I'll make a prediction now. We made the prediction yesterday about Ring Boys. Get ready for that. But my prediction is this will stay quiet for a while. She did agree with me. I said, do you think if she ends up donating a large check to women's, victims of this abuse, you think that would, save face for her? And she said, absolutely. I said, do you think it'll happen? She says, yeah. She says, it's very possible. If she does donate money, I think that absolutely would be a great thing. Hey, look at how much money I end up squeezing out of Vince. I'm going to give half of it to victims. That's how she saves face. But my prediction is once Vince McMahon passes away, you will see the floodgates open. You will have women come out that probably never spoke to Vince in his life claiming abuse. It reminds me of the Michael Jackson shit that's going on right now. At the end of the day, I have no idea what Michael Jackson did and he didn't do. From following him from the early days of his childhood, me being a child also at the time, I always got the impression that this was a little like the brain of a kid that never grew up. And he felt most comfortable around children because they were the ones that had no ulterior motives to steal his money, no ulterior motives to take advantage of him, no ulterior motives to yell at him and abuse him and misuse him. And I think he just liked that innocent because his childhood, he was very much abused by his father. And no, that doesn't make it right. I think it's very creepy and disturbing that you're sharing the same bed with strange kids. I just think I don't care what your mentality is. All right, it's just bizarre. But the thing is, now he's dead and people could just say anything the fuck they want, and it's juicy television. And that's why so many people are talking about it. So once Vince dies, you're going to see the floodgates open up. You're going to see more stories open up than women's legs and Vince McMahon. I hate to say it like that, but you're going to, get ready. Get ready. It's just a matter of time. So, by the way, and we'll cover Raw in a minute. Obviously, we have a lot of progression in some storylines going into Night of Champions and a few things. We'll recap that. But I definitely want to get into some wrestling news also. Before I mention the tragic passing of a local wrestler here, and I'm going to say something tonight that no one has said yet about this kid that died at 23. And the only reason why I can say it and no one else out there can say it is because where this kid died, I drive that same road once a month. I will explain it in very, very much detail what happened. There's even some video online of some passersby showing the two cars, the damage afterwards. I didn't want to show it because you could see license plates, and I just thought it was a little bit much to just to show, but I'm going to get into something later about that crash that is going to be very, very eerily similar to a certain wrestler, a tag team wrestler who died not too long ago. You know who I'm talking about. This is very, very similar. We'll get into it. We'll get into it in a little bit, but I do want to first mention this. Remember this case? Remember this? This was my thumbnail about a year ago or so. The only difference was at that time he was indicted. Now we found out today that the man that stalked Liv Morgan, Sean Chan, has been found not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, I followed this case very, very closely. But see, I don't get paid by the word, and I don't get paid by the minute. Major props for Post Wrestling to post this novel of explaining what this is. And there's some people out there that love to read 30 minutes worth of, stuff related to this case. I could summarize this case in 5 minutes to all of you out there. And this is really what it comes down to. All right. They were in court today in Florida, Central District in Florida, for 30 minutes. And look, I'm not even looking at notes. I'm going to just tell you in simple English what happened. Okay. Up until today, this guy has been seen by a lot of doctors. And we're not talking doctors. Do you have sniffies? Do you have sniffle? No, these are doctors to determine if he's mentally stable, if he's mentally able to stand trial. Think of, who was the, oh my God, I'm drawing a fucking huge brain fart right now. Who's the wrestler that killed his wife? Oh my God, Billy Jack Haynes. All right, I had a quick brain fart. It's late. Billy Jack Haynes. Billy Jack Haynes, for about a year and a half, we were all wondering, what's going on with the case? What's going on? They're mentally incompetent. You're like, now he's mentally competent to stand trial. So what happened with Sean Chan is, look, when someone travels all the way from Canada, to Liv Morgan's house with an air rifle, thinking that that's his girl, and you know the whole story, there's a nut job. Anybody that does that is a nut job. I don't care if you have all your faculties there, you're a nut job. Anybody that does heinous acts like that is a nut job. But the thing is, you have to be medically diagnosed with insanity. And he's seen a lot of doctors, and there's been quite a few reports. And what happened today in Florida is that all of this documentation was put in front of a judge. Post Wrestling and some people online are really focused like, it was only a 30-minute trial. No, it wasn't just a 30-minute trial. What happened was they went into court and he agreed to skip a jury trial. So once this guy, Sean Chan, through his attorney, agreed to skip a jury trial, the judge now has the power to make a decision. Up until now, there would have been a jury to determine if he's guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity. When he agreed to bypass a jury, as did the prosecution, then the judge makes a decision. The judge looked at all the medical reports, and the judge said, you know what? This guy's a couple of eggs short of a dozen. He doesn't have it all there. He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. In fact, he's mentally insane. So they ruled that he is not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, not going to throw any shade on any reporters out there, but we know that ICE is a very unpopular topic, obviously. There's things about ICE that I don't like either, okay? But I got to call this as fair as I possibly can with all of you out there, right? This guy's an illegal immigrant. He's in the country illegally, okay? So now they don't know what to do with him, all right? And he's going into ICE custody because he's not guilty by reason of insanity, all right? What is going to happen next to him? Because I think he was facing 5 years in jail, which is not as much as you would think he should have faced. Based on experience, seeing other cases, reading how things are done this way, he will be deported back to Canada, and he will probably be committed to some type of a mental hospital. I don't think Canada can force him to serve out a sentence because he was committing a crime in the United States. Now, he could be found guilty of crimes by leaving the country and whatever he did, but realistically, I think what'll happen is an agreement will be made that he will be sent back to Canada and he will go into a mental hospital. And listen, what he did is fucked up. If he's mentally insane, hopefully he gets the treatment that he needs. And maybe one day, you never know. Maybe one day he turns into, a straight person. And I don't mean sexually. I mean straight as, that he's got all his faculties there. Because it sucks. Listen, you see online, remember that guy that tackled Seth Rollins on Raw? Remember that guy? He tackled Seth Rollins and then he cut a video and he honestly thought that Seth Rollins ripped him off. Do you remember the crazy story with Liv Morgan in the house? It was yours truly that uncovered the truth. And as usual, none of the wrestling websites gave us any love towards it because, I'm not crediting that guy. Remember, there was a guy that there was a guy that found out that he lost his house because he thought he was putting it up for sale and giving the money to Liv Morgan to help Liv Morgan. All right. Somebody lost their house because they thought they were helping Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan gets wind of this story. This is like 3 years ago. And Liv Morgan is like, oh my God, everyone, please, this is not me. And I would never ever do something like that. And I feel so bad for this person that lost his house and this and that. Go look it up. She made all these quotes. And I wrote to her and I said, listen, I don't expect a response. I said, but trust me, because I'm someone that's been in collections and dealt with credit cards. I work in credit cards for years and there's a lot. I said, I don't know if you know about these scammers from Calcutta, India, but the guy claiming that he sold his house is the fucking scammer. He is the scammer. He wants you to think that he lost his house so someone will set up a GoFundMe. Or maybe she kind of feels bad and tries to give him some money to help him back on his feet. That is the scammer. And it ended up being true. But because, how dare you call an Indian a scammer? That's racist. And she didn't say that, but other people said that towards me. The fuck you want me to do, lie and say he did it in Long Island? The guy's from Long Island. He's from down the block from my house. The fucking guy that did it is from Calcutta, India. Period. It's not me just singling out a country, but she fell for it. She actually, oh my God, somebody lost their house because of me. That's so wrong. Yeah, it is wrong. He didn't lose no house. He was the scammer. So the bottom line is, I hope this guy gets his head on straight. And if he doesn't, he'll be in a mental hospital for the foreseeable future. So thank God nothing happened. Thank God nothing violent happened. You think about the Sonya Deville story, totally different situation. This guy's been ruled insane. So he is found not guilty by reason of insanity. So, all right. Very quickly, I do want to mention also, and this is a very sad story here in the Northeast. In fact, there's so many people out there that have no idea that this kid, lived in Long Island and died in Long Island. It's an independent wrestler, 23 years old. His real name is Jordan Nasir Saintfort Collin. And unfortunately, this past Friday, he died in Long Island in a head-on collision. Local news covered it. Newspapers covered it. When I saw the location from the fan video, I'm like, holy shit, that road looks so familiar. Any of you on Patreon know, because we talk a little deep about personal stuff and health and everything. A lot of you know that I am borderline prostate cancer. My numbers are high. They've been high for a while. Prostate cancer runs in my family. My father had it. He was cured from it. My uncle had it. He was cured from it. My other uncle had it. He died from it. My numbers have been pretty consistent for the last 2.5 years. As long as it doesn't go higher, I'm borderline, but I'm okay. All right. Once a month, I go to NYU Langone Hospital, 185 Central Avenue, Bethpage, New York. All right. I go there once a month and I see my urologist. And how I get there is I take the Southern State Parkway and I take it to Central Avenue in Bethpage. It takes me onto, I think, Hempstead Turnpike, and then I get on the Bethpage State Parkway. And then you get on the Bethpage State Parkway, you stay on it for maybe 2 or 3 exits, and I get off at exit 4B, which is Central Avenue, and my doctor's right there. This kid, Jordan, was traveling on that highway, and he was the exit that I get on to go to my doctor. And what happened was Friday at 9:30 in the morning, he was driving on the Bethpage State Parkway going one way, and another car was coming the other way. And the accident is very, very eerily similar to what happened to Jay Briscoe. Here's the difference. If you Google Bethpage State Parkway, you will see nothing but trees. It looks beautiful. It looks serene. It looks quiet because there's Bethpage State Park that's there. That's why it's Bethpage State Parkway. There's an awesome bike route right along the highway where you could get off the highway and ride this bike route and go into nature and everything. The problem is there's only one lane going this way and one lane going this way, and it's not separated by dividers. And Bethpage State Parkway is not a straight route. Its speed limit is usually, I think, 55, but there's areas where it could go 45. There's no divider. And what happens? You get on this highway, and I know because when I get off the road and get on the Bethpage State Parkway, I gun it because the distance between the stop sign and the highway is only a couple of feet. So when there's cars coming, you have to gun it and get to full speed so somebody doesn't ram you. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there for 10 minutes waiting for cars to go by. So what happened was he was driving by exit 2B, B2, and it curves, the road curves. And what happened? The person driving the other way lost control of his vehicle and crashed, ended up on the opposite side of the road and went head on into Jordan's vehicle. It just was not Jordan's fault whatsoever. There's a sharp turn. Guy, I don't know if he was just lost control, didn't, judge the turn, texting while driving, didn't see the turn come. I don't know. No one knows. The other person did survive the accident. So obviously lawsuits are coming out, no question. If I really wanted to, I could get my hands on the police report because I do insurance for a living. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not. Because I don't need to know that much particulars. Like when Jeff Hardy had his auto accidents, not even the DWI arrest. Remember when he hit that the divider and all that stuff? That's when I was doing shows with Mish. I got the police report. And we got so much additional info that no one else had. But at the time also, I was like, I don't know if I need this much. But it is so reminiscent of Jay Briscoe because the other car lost control around a turn, ended up on the wrong side of the road and went head on into Jay Briscoe's vehicle. And the thing is, with this kid's car, I don't know if he had a Honda or Mazda, but he had a car that was like a small compact car that's like 12 years old. And he could not survive it. And unfortunately, he passed away, man. And he was an uprising star. Not only did he perform in New York, he performed in Jersey, performed in Nevada, WrestleMania weekend, performed in Indiana. I mean, this is not someone that's just going to like states near his home. This is a guy that actually got work in other states. And some, more famous wrestlers do know who he is and work shows with him. So I wanted to show the respect and the love because I'll be honest with you, I'm not trying to be a dick here, but there's so many disingenuous news sites. We are devastated. We are floored. We are saddened from the passing. And it's the same fucking generic line. They probably even have a template saved in their computer where the first couple of sentences are filled. You know what it says? You load the file that says RIP, and you open the file, it says, "We are deeply saddened by the loss of," and then there's an empty line, you fill in the blank, "who tragically passed away at the age of," and you fill in the age. And then you add some additional details, and then the final paragraph says, "On behalf of Ringside News, we send our condolences and our prayers to the family, friends, and co-workers of," and fill in the said wrestler, and you enter it, and you act like you give a shit, and you don't give a shit. That's what too many people do. Because if you truly cared, you would not use a generic statement. And I didn't look at nothing. I'm just talking straight because I felt terrible for this guy. Now, I did write down for anybody that's interested, because I do have a lot of homeboys and homegirls that tune in from New York. If you knew him, if you lived around here and you want to go to his funeral, he is going to be, there's a viewing Friday at the Claude R. Boyd Spencer Funeral Home in Babylon. The visitation is from 2 to 4 and 7 to 9. Don't know, what's going to go on there. Don't know what happens afterwards, but that's all I know. But I do know, and that road is scary. It's beautiful, but it's scary. And unfortunately, Jordan is not the first person that's lost his life on that road. That road, if you drive too fast and you're not paying attention, especially if there's bad weather out, you go around that turn and you start hydroplaning, or you just misjudge it a little bit, there's nowhere to go. It's either the other side of the road onto oncoming traffic or into trees. There is no safe area. It's not like the Midwest where like, oh, look, corn. That doesn't happen. So my thoughts and prayers, honestly, sincerely, to his family, his friends, and all the wrestlers that spoke out. So I wanted to just pay a little tribute. So someone else that died. And why did I mention Ringside News? Because let me tell you something. I said this on Patreon Thursday with Joey924, and I think it's appropriate if I say it here now. I know this is going to sound awful, but you ever watch those videos where somebody is walking down the street, it's usually an old lady or a woman, sometimes a kid or an old man, and they're just walking down the street, minding their own business, and as they walk by, someone is walking the opposite way, and for no reason whatsoever, they just get punched right in the mouth. How many times have you seen those videos where somebody just randomly gets sucker punched in the middle of the street for no reason whatsoever? Those videos are awful. They're not funny. But I will say this. If anybody from Ringside News was walking down the street and we watched a video of just some random nobody just walking by, not knowing who they are, just randomly punching them in the mouth and breaking their teeth, I probably would put it on loop. I probably would put it on loop and enjoy it, because these guys are just the shit of the shit. I fucking can't stand them all. You got that one fucking abuser towards women also. I'm not mentioning his name, but why am I so annoyed? Because earlier today, this man passed away. Now, a lot of you on video that sees, wait, this is a guy from Boston, and he's got bad teeth. His name is Eddie Endelman. And the thing with Eddie Endelman is that many people call him the godfather of sports radio. This is a guy, and there's a wrestling connection to this. This is a guy that was in radio for about 50 years, always in Boston. And I actually took some notes, 42 years to be exact. He started in 1969, the year I was born. He was on one radio station, UNR in Boston, moved on to other radio stations, and had his his radio career until he retired about 14 years ago. And the wrestling tie with him is that he has always been credited as the person who originated the idea of the king of the ring for the WWF, now WWE. Now, based on who you talk to online, they will say that that's figment of his imagination. People that are in the know that this is not someone who just, is saying this. There is a little bit of evidence to sort of back this up, and I'll get to the Ringside News asshole moment in a second. If you do a little bit of a Google search and check out the original King of the Ring, you will see an advertisement that says the WWF presents with WZOU 94.5 FM, the King of the Ring 14-man elimination tournament. This is the first King of the Ring. Look at the lower half left-hand corner of the photo. This is a WWF printed advertisement. If you want to go even one step further, you can even see the same radio station, WZOU, promoting the King of the Ring at the Sullivan Stadium, July 8th, 1985. Now, I think they also had one in July of 1986. Okay, 1986, because there's some dispute as far as the date. The bottom line is that the story that's always gone around is King of the Ring was going to be done in Boston. He is one of the biggest radio guys ever in Boston. Much younger guy too, 40 years ago, because he passed away at like 89. I think it was 89. I don't have his age in front of me, but I think it was around 89. Yeah, 89. That is actually it. So, 40 years ago, he's 44. Oh, no, 48. What am I saying? No, yeah, 48 years old. So he's promoting WWF in Boston in the mid-'80s and promoting King of the Ring. And the story that's always been told is that him and Vince McMahon came up with the concept to get a little bit extra attention to it. And he passed away at 89 years old. So I wanted to mention him, but why does Ringside News have to do with this? Okay, you have to be on video to see this and just see the tackiness of it. I'm all for a little play on words. All right, I'll get a ha-ha. I'll give credit if somebody like kind of fools you with a graphic. But I invite anyone, go on my X account, x.com, twitter.com/@DonTonyD. And look at the link that I posted for a Google image search. I wanted to find a good picture of Eddie Adelman. And when I did the Google image search, obviously there's a whole bunch of wrestling sites reporting his death and this and that. Then I found one. And I looked at the photo and I'm like, that's not an error. That is someone intentionally putting up fake shit. Now, you guys will remember before Kev passed away, God rest his soul, we had a couple of episodes that we were having like some good laughs over it, even though it was disturbing, that MSN, which was the most notorious one of doing it, would post the death of a wrestler, and then they'll post a different wrestler. And the wrestler that they post is someone that's still alive. And then you see like hundreds of people, bro, that's wrong. Bro, you got the wrong image. Bro, take it down. Dude, that's not that person. Dude, this is wrong. Dude, that's fucked up. And they don't take it down. I misspell something on X, I delete the post immediately or I edit it. Why would someone report the death of Yokozuna and then fucking put Bastion Booger on the screen? All right, I'm just using a lame example, but people do that. One of the things that is done on X all the time is that someone will post something inaccurate or wrong. And then you'll have thousands of people say, bro, that's wrong. Bro, you got it wrong. Bro, you got the wrong name. Bro, you got the wrong. And they leave it. Or they'll add a comment underneath, my bad. Why don't they delete it? Because they're getting more views and ad revenue than if they put the real thing. If they put the real person, it might only get 10 views because there's 1,000 people posting the same thing. But if you post the wrong person, it stands out like a sore thumb. So when I did an image search for Eddie Adelman, this comes up. Ric Flair found dead in the gym at the age of 77. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, why is Ric Flair coming up as a result when I'm looking up Eddie Adelman? So I click on the banner and it's an article from Ringside News reporting the death of Eddie Adelman. So I said, okay, let me look a little bit further. And what these scumbags did was they posted this picture originally internally. So when it showed up on a Google search result, that when people search the death of Eddie Endelman, this photo would come up. But the thing is they have the photo hidden on their website so you can't see it. But on Google, it pulls it up. It's on their meta, or whatever you call it. So if you look very closely in the lower right-hand corner, in very small text is the word lifting. So now if you add the word lifting to this, it says Ric Flair found deadlifting in the gym at the age of 77. You get it? He was deadlifting, lifting weights in the gym. But they put in giant letters, found dead. And this is Ringside News posting Ric Flair found dead. Because when you do a Google image search, guys, unless you're using a 95-inch computer monitor, if you're doing this on a phone or even on a normal size computer monitor, those letters of the word lifting are microscopic. And this is what these assholes do. And it's up there right now. You go look it up. It's up there. And I'm like, wow, I really, there's some people that I would honestly have no remorse for if they just disappeared from the face of the earth. Assholes. Now, I want to get into something else. This is something that I've been very, very careful how I report this and discuss it. How many of you out there the last couple of days watched the Chris Van Vliet interview with Cathy Kelly? Wonderful interview. I am a huge fan of Cathy Kelly. Not because she's brunette, not because she's beautiful, not because she's charming, and she just comes off as a wonderful person. Obviously, the big story coming out of it is that she was diagnosed with being autistic. She has autism. All right. Now, I explained a couple of days ago, it might have been on Patreon, but I don't say that as a plug, but we get deeper in personal stuff on that, in that family that we hang out with. But when I was talking about autism growing up, I always thought of Rain Man, the movie Rain Man, when I thought of autism. Like, I expect someone to look different, act different, be, like somebody who stands out. Like, and as I get older, I understand that, when Will Ospreay revealed that he has autism, like, I was like, him? Come on. That's, no. Like, no. Like, you see someone and you're like, yeah, that person's got some. But you realize autism is a lot up here. It's not a physical thing. It's an emotional, it's a brain thing. And Cathy Kelly got vilified from Kevin Owens' wife. And, the funny thing is I looked around at other people's reporting of this. And the title that I found pretty fucking wild, and quite a few people wrote it this way: Kevin Owens' wife attacks autistic Cathy Kelly. That's how they titled it. Trying to say that Kevin Owens' wife is attacking someone who's autistic. That's exactly how they worded it. And I was like, something doesn't seem right about this story. Something doesn't seem right. The wrestling world exploded with this story. That, Cathy Kelly revealed that Kevin Owens' son has autism and this and that. How many wrestling news sites reported that? Not Kevin Owens' wife's response. That's another story. But how many news websites talked about Kevin Owens' son having autism? Now, I have a gem of a clip for all of you out there. I actually have two. One is with the permission of Chris Van Vliet. I want you for a brief second to see and hear what Cathy Kelly actually said that pissed off Kevin Owens' wife. Then I will tell you my thoughts about Kevin Owens' wife. And then I'm going to tell you something and then play you a clip of an old episode of the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show 10 years ago. And you'll be surprised what you hear. This is what Chris Van Vliet and Cathy Kelly said that set up this firestorm.
How did your friendship with Kevin Owens begin?
I want to say it just gradually grew over time. He has a lot of the same humor that my family has. And so you just end up gravitating towards, people that get that. But yeah, he's been super supportive, especially since the diagnosis, since he knows so much about it because of his son. And he's just a very grounded, he's a good person to go to for advice because he'll be direct about it and give you a really good answer.
She brought up Kevin Owens' son. So, Kevin Owens' wife went nuclear on Cathy Kelly. And I have the screenshots, and I'm going to share with you what Kevin Owens' wife said. Quote, as someone who actively tries to stay out of drama, when it comes to my child, I have to speak up. Recently, Cathy Kelly mentioned my son in an interview. Why she would choose to talk about someone else's child's medical history is beyond me. What she said is not true. I do my best to keep my family private. As a protective mother, it really angers me when someone takes it upon themselves to talk about my children on a public platform without my consent, without Kevin's consent. The fact that I need to come out and clear this up is so ridiculous. Now, some people have said she took that post down. I don't know if that's true. Here is the truth. And I want you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to say. Because a lot of wrestling news sites that gave this revelation about Kevin Owens' son being autistic, definitely look and find out if they were in existence 10 years ago. Because if they were in existence 10 years ago, congratulations, they used you for a bunch of ad revenue. Because Kevin Owens has talked about, quote, his autistic son in the past. There is an episode with Colt Cabana where Kevin Owens discusses autism and his son. There is another interview. I don't know if it was Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, but there's another interview where people would talk, our video. I can't find the clip, but apparently in the our video shoot interview, he may have brought up something about his kid and autism. But lo and fucking behold, and this is why I'm calling out all of those wrestling news sites that are reporting as if they never knew that Kevin Owens' son had autism. I would like to share with you a clip of the Don Tony and Kevin Castle show from 10 years ago. Pay very close attention of the background of this image that you see. It is a tweet from Mick Foley back in 2016. If I had more time today, I would have included tweets from Matt Hardy and a bunch of others. I want you to hear the clip, and I guarantee you, when you hear the clip, you're going to recognize a certain name in ESPN, and then you're going to remember this story. And guess what? It has to do about Kevin Owens' son, and also has to do with autism. I saw Mick Foley online refusing to publish the guy's name, saying, he doesn't deserve the 5 minutes of fame. But, I disagree with that because I think that when you put his name out there, you let a lot of people know who the asshole is. Because if you don't acknowledge who the asshole is, the guy might write something great for your sports team in the future, and you could be praising this motherfucker and not even realizing that he's the same cocksucker asshole that did what he did last week to Kevin Owens' son. Did you hear about this story?
Yeah, didn't he apologize though?
Well, let me tell this story to everybody, okay? Amin El Hassan. He works for ESPN. He does a lot of different sports coverage there. And he is what a lot of people call a professional troller. He trolls online for attention on his Twitter page. You go look at his Twitter page, go back months and months and months and months and months. He trolls people. And he can be a real asshole at times. And I think he gets a pass for an obvious reason, I won't say the obvious reason yet, but I'll let everyone's imagination run wild. But when Kevin Owens won the title last Monday on Raw, Kevin Owens' wife posted a video clip of their 8-year-old son, who is autistic. And they showed the reaction of Kevin Owens' son as watching his father win the heavyweight title.
No.
And what this asshole did was he said, until he writes on Twitter, he says, until he realizes that it's fake. So he's basically mocking your old kid, saying, he's so happy for his father, but...
Yeah, but he was mocking him as an 8-year-old, not as an autistic kid.
No, because someone then said to this guy, El Hassan, he says, he's autistic, right? And Amin's answer back was, the father or the son? You know what I mean? Like, he kept leading it on. That? Yeah. This guy, like 3 or 4 days later, put up an apology. 2 sentences said, look, it was in poor taste. My apology to Kevin Owens' family. That's it. Now, for everybody out there, I want you to go to his Twitter account right now. The number 1 pinned tweet. He's got a tweet pinned on his page right now, as of tonight, that says, your insults to me are like PEDs. Okay? Like, he is feeding on all his hate. Now, if he was truly sorry for what he said, why would he leave a tweet pinned talking about how all the hate is his PEDs for
because
what
he's probably still getting hate despite the apology.
This guy has been getting eaten alive. And I am shocked to shit that ESPN has not let this guy go. Seriously, you make fun of an 8-year-old autistic kid. You're told within 5 minutes that the kid is autistic, and for days upon days upon days. He didn't just make that one remark. Every time people were criticizing him, he would go back and rip these people and rip these people and rip these people. I mean, he tweeted 50, 100 times. Like, really nasty shit. How many of you even knew about that? How many of those sites, those news sites, the last couple of days reminded you of that? This was a gigantic story at the time. And I'm going to say something now, and I hope one of you bring it to this person's attention, because I have criticized this man quite a bit for obvious reasons. Your boy got scoops, but I have to give him a little bit of love right now if this is true. Because when I was doing my old research, because I do save a lot of my notes, I have Word files. I still use the same software. I use Gold Wave for some of my audio. I use same shit I used 20 years ago sometimes, if it's still compatible. Looking back at my notes, it appears that Jonathan Coachman, who I believe was working still at ESPN at the time, that Jonathan Coachman was the one rumored to convince this guy to issue the apology. And if that's the case, props to Jonathan Coachman. I don't know if he would come out and admit that or not, but my old notes, it says verify if Coach told him to apologize. It's ridiculous that anybody had to tell this guy to apologize. But the reason why I'm saying this is I could only imagine the challenges of having a child that's autistic. I can only imagine, the extra stress and the extra love that you have to give. I mean, and I commend Kevin Owens and his wife, and I commend anyone out there, not only anybody out there who has a child or a relative, but people out there that are tuning in right now that are autistic themselves, because that's why even when we talk about autism on Patreon, there's quite a few of you out there who are diagnosed as autistic. I don't joke about it. I don't find it funny. But here's the thing. Me coming from Queens, New York, me being an Italian guy from Howard Beach, hey, how you doing? Hey, you wanna touch my salami? Hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm the boss, capiche? If I'm from the street or if I'm from the neighborhood, you know what I say out of all of this? Minga, Kevin Owens' wife, really fucking doesn't like Cathy Kelly. She don't like that fucking friendship. I don't know what Kevin Owens' wife thinks about, I do not, listen, I'm not trying to insinuate that Kevin Owens and Cathy Kelly are hiding this. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that, a simple phone call or a text, Cathy Kelly was not saying anything out of line about Kevin Owens' son. Yeah, bringing personal stuff out there, it would definitely rub the wrong way. But what about the ESPN thing? She put a video out 10 years ago when Kevin Owens won the Universal Championship, when Triple H showed up and helped him win the Universal Championship after Finn Balor went down with the injury. And Kevin Owens was shocked in the ring. And I remember she played the video of her son marking out big time, watching his father win the Universal Championship. And here comes this asshole. And let me tell you something. If you go check out the September 6th, 2016 episode, September 5th, 2016 episode of Don, Tony, and Kevin Castro, you can listen to the extended version. At that time, I had to be so fucking careful how I handled this, because at that time, you go 10 years ago, you think about who was president at the time and everything else. If you dared knock someone who is maybe certain ethnicities that you would deem the hater, a racist, and this and that. And a lot of people were very, very touchy about going after this guy because of his name and his perception of who he is and where he's from and this and that. And to me, that was really, really fucked up. And we talked about that 10 years ago. But I will say this. She put out a video of her son. Talk about somebody keeping pride. She was so proud and so happy for her son that she showed the world about her son. And then this guy, was told 5 minutes in that he's autistic. Where was the wife, shooting this down? There's tons of proof out there that the discussion of his son and autism has been out there. This is something that's been out there for over a decade. So why is this a news story? I don't know anything about his wife. I'm not going to throw any shade to her, but let me just tell you something. Looking at this from the outside in, she don't like that Kevin Owens is friends with her. She don't fucking like it at all, because, to go that vicious like this, especially when you can see that Cathy Kelly is not showing any ill will whatsoever. She recently got diagnosed with autism. Kevin Owens has a family member that has it. It's been public before, and they connected a little bit, and she talks to him and seeks out advice from him and maybe some assistance. And she just went fucking nuclear on Cathy Kelly. So, again, I feel bad that they, whatever stress and challenges that comes with that, and the amount of love that they have provided their son. I'm not questioning that at all. I just question, why did she go vicious like this after her? It's just bizarre, especially when you flash back. But again, all those sites that treated this revelation of Kevin Owens' son as new, now you know. Now you know. This is why I take pride that I've been doing this for almost 30 years now. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. Thank God we have it documented. We have audio and video proof going back to 2001. Obviously technology was awful in 1996. So we couldn't even think about recording shit and put it online. Even in 2001, that was prehistoric. But this is why we keep our library out there. Because when a story gets uncovered, something seems off and something seems like it's been talked about before, you start pulling your archives and like, wait a minute, wait one fucking minute. I remember this ESPN disaster when they went after Kevin Owens' son, that prick and everything. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. So I guarantee you probably found out something that you did not know about that. So just 3 other quick tidbits in wrestling. Then we'll move on to a quick Raw recap. Updated brackets for King and Queen of the Ring, Night of Champions, because another match was announced with a stipulation tonight. And then I also want to give everybody the updated brackets for the Owen Hart tournament, because there are a few of you that have asked about that too. First of all, congratulations to Will Ospreay and Alex Windsor. They got married. Her real name is Alice Walker. So they are now husband and wife, and I believe they got married over the weekend. So congrats to both of them. Also, congratulations goes out to Brian Cage. This motherfucker, it's insane how, I mean, he's always been a freak of nature, but it's insane to just see, it's just crazy. He won Mr. Nevada's Muscle Contest International Championship. And I'm just showing you from the waist up. If you look at some of those photos that he put online, it's just, it's insane. It's insane how in shape this guy is. It's freaky. My God, I think I have abs. I'm not kidding. I would never do it. No super chat would get me to do it. But if I lifted my shirt up right now, you would be convinced that I do have a 6-pack or at least a 4-pack over there. And then I realize I don't have like crazy stomach muscles. I just have like 4 fat deposits in areas that make it look like I have abs. Sometimes I get out of the shower and I look in the mirror. I'm like, hey, I got a 4-pack. And then I realize it's just like puffy because it's like deposits of fat. But Brian Cage, man, the guy is just a freak of nature. One other thing that you get a kick out of. We already discussed this, but I wanted to give everybody an update. El Grande Americano, Ludwig Kaiser, has put his actual mask that he wore in a mask versus mask match up for auction at Fanatics. And all of the proceeds that is raised from that mask auction is going to go to help children who are battling life-threatening illnesses. Life-threatening illnesses. And right now, the bid, I don't know how much you think the mask would sell for. I mean, obviously, it's Ludwig Kaiser at the end of the day, for being honest. Of course, iconic match, and it was awesome and everything. But right now, that mask, the auction is up to, I think, about $22,000. So that is, you would think, now let this sink in. Ludwig Kaiser's turning into an early version of Conan from years ago, before WCW days, even before Max Moon. He is turning into a superhero in Mexico. You would think, coming off of Mask versus Mask, you walk into the Kaiser household, as long as your name is not Richard Reed, you walk into the Kaiser household, and you would think on his mantle, on top of his fireplace, would be that fucking mask. I do have a mask right there. How much you think I get if I auction? That's a real El Grande Americano mask. Somebody in Florida gifted it to me a while back. But that would be like the most amazing thing that he could have on his mantle. In his entire wrestling career, that has got to be the pinnacle of what he's done so far. And he's giving it away for charity and to help sick kids. I mean, it's just, you can't write it any better than that. So props. And this is not a WWE thing. I want to make this clear. This is Kaiser giving up his mask because that is his to keep and cherish. And that's a memory for a lifetime. And now, at the end of the day, and I say this lightheartedly, it's probably going to go in Conrad's hands. It's going to go to some Texas Ribs restaurant in fucking Texas. It's going to go to listen, whoever owns it, I hope they give it back to Kaiser. Honestly, seriously, if I'm a millionaire, even a billionaire or just a millionaire, if I was a millionaire, I'd drop 30, 40 G's on that mask because I could write it off as a tax write-off when I do my taxes. I would write it off and then I would give it back to Kaiser. Say, here, I donated to charity. Here's your mask back. Thank you for doing what you did. Everybody wins at the end of the day. Because me, I could brag about it. I might get laid over it because of doing, oh, honey, that was such a nice thing to do. I might get slapped in the face. Honey, you just dropped 40 grand for what? So it could go either way. But not only that, I could write it off as a tax write-off, and I gave it as a gift. So I could double dip. See, I bought it, then I gave it away. So I gave away something of value, and I spent something of value. Everybody wins. So I hope whoever wins the auction gives the mask back to Kaiser. But I will say this. If Kaiser got the mask back, he can't auction it again. You know, Conrad, if you're listening, Conrad, if you bid on that and you win it, give it back to him. Give it back to him. You can write it off on your fucking taxes, all that revenue you get from your mortgage stuff. And I say that with love because, believe it or not, you ask Conrad, I have recommended some of my customers to Conrad in the past. He will tell you. I've had a couple of customers, hey, do you recommend anybody to refinance? Yeah, give Conrad Thompson a call. Unfortunately, he was unable to help them. One guy's credit was horrible. Horrible. The other one, I don't know why it didn't work out, but if he happens to win that auction, give it back to him. That's all I'm saying. So, all right. Oh, yeah, this is the Deadspin article. That's the Deadspin article that no one is giving credit. They're the ones. See, the funny thing is, you see how Deadspin wrote exclusive, highlighted? You would think that the wrestling news sites who get butthurt if you don't acknowledge their name when they report, you would think that when they're reporting about Drew McIntyre filming a movie, you'd think that they would give the credit to Deadspin. When you write exclusive, it's done for a reason. You're not just saying it like, oh, look, maybe I get some extra credit. No, they're the ones that actually broke the story. So I just figured I'd share that. A couple of quick plugs, if anybody is interested. A good friend of the family, Rams fan. Any of you that used to hang out at the watch parties know him very well. If you're on our Patreon, you know him very well. Guy's definitely got a great voice talking wrestling. Him and his friend Jeff Uso, they do a podcast on YouTube called the SmackDown Friendo Soup du Jour. Just look up Soup du Jour. So it's a good podcast. They talk wrestling. They talk other stuff as well. So shout out to Rams fan. He's definitely doing some good work there. I listened to about 15 minutes of it yesterday, and I was pretty impressed. Not much stuttering, which is a good thing. Also, congratulations to the Knicks. We talked about that yesterday. It's crazy how New York and beyond have. It's crazy how many New York Knicks fans were at that San Antonio game. I don't even think when they were going to ban the Knicks fans, I don't even think it was a case of all the violence that was going on in New York, because those derelicts in New York that were ripping the Spurs jerseys off of guys' backs and breaking buses and cop cars and cabs, I don't think any of them were like, yo, dude, let's fuck up the bus. And are we going to go on the plane tomorrow to go to set? Those motherfuckers didn't even have money to fucking buy a train fucking pass to go home. So those assholes in New York City that were doing that shit were not the people that were paying thousands to go to San Antonio. So I think the reason why they were going to block people is because they wanted to have as many Spurs fans as they could in that building as a home field advantage, because they were concerned that the Knicks were going to get overwhelmingly cheered, and we know what went down in Game 5. So congrats to them. And if you haven't checked out already, make sure you check out the history show from this weekend. That is a real photo. That is one of the most legendary wrestle crap moments in WCW history that nobody talks about. The most beautiful thing about it is if you go back and watch it, pay very close attention of Sting's face paint when he's in the ring after the match, and then the face paint here. And then you'll realize that this was a pre-recorded segment way, way, way earlier in the day. And then WCW realized, like, how do we know how much makeup comes off of Sting's face? He has his match. I don't know who the retard was that did that, but it's just amazing when you go back and watch it, because you wouldn't realize it right away unless you looked out for it. But they recorded this earlier in the day, and they tried to estimate how much sweat and how much face paint would have gotten peeled off of Skin's face. And sure enough, you look at the end of the match and you look at here and you realize, yeah, it looks completely different. So, that is funny, man. That is funny shit. I love doing those history shows. All right. Let's recap Raw. Let's give some King and Queen of the Ring updates. Right before that, I want to just give you the brackets for the Owen Hart tournament, because there are quite a few of you that do follow it. It's a nice thing, if we're being honest. Right now in the quarterfinals, you got Will Ospreay versus Mark Davis. On the opposite side, it's Swerve versus Brody King. Winner goes on to the tournament final at Forbidden Door. Then obviously I think gets the championship shot at All In. Most people think Ospreay is taking this. So a big question is does Ospreay fight Swerve or does Ospreay fight Brody King going into, the summertime? So on the women's side, it's interesting because remember, I think it was the year before. Wasn't it the year before that Mercedes Moné and Athena were on the same side of the brackets? And people want, I'm pretty sure that was. That could end up being the final this time around. You have in the quarterfinals Hazuki, Gesundheit, taking on Mercedes Moné. And on the opposite side, you have Athena taking on Maya World. With all due respect, I do watch enough AEW to say this. I do not see Maya World going to Forbidden Door fighting Mercedes Moné to determine who goes to the Owen Hart tournament. I think you have to have the two biggest names, especially you're going to be in California. I think you'd have Athena versus Mercedes Moné in the final, and we will see what happens. Now, I think those matches will go down both this Saturday on the women's side. So by the weekend, they'll know who's going to be in those finals. So now we get to WWE, Monday Night Raw. And again, as I said before, it is not easy to do this show a minute after Raw goes off the air. For the simple reason that how do you gather photos? And plus, any of you out there love this JFIF picture format? That fucking format does not work with my software. And any photos that I download, I have to literally convert them to JPEG files in order to use them. So not only do I have to find photos and sync them up, but I have to edit it and convert them. And you got to do this while you're watching Raw and have it ready. So this way, as soon as Oba Femi says, Brock Lesnar, I keep bringing up your name, so you kick my ass at King of the Ring. Brock Lesnar, I know you're home, but I'm going to keep baiting you until you fuck me up. And then Brock Lesnar, I will fight you at SummerSlam. It'll be 3. Brock Lesnar, I am... Oola! I'm dropping shit. I'm going a little overboard here. All right. So I have as many pitches as I possibly could gather. So we open up Raw, rinse and repeat. Roman Reigns, for some reason, doesn't walk around with the championship. Roman Reigns doesn't show up at UFC with the championship in his waist or on his shoulder. Roman Reigns, for some reason, there's always got to be some goofy production guy. I don't know if that's possibly an on-location thing now. For $10,000, you could show up at Raw and you could play production guy and hand the title to Roman Reigns. Let me tell you something. I made a prediction on Patreon Thursday that I'm going to throw here now, even though I'm not going to put it, maybe I will put it in a synopsis. I'm going to make a prediction that when AI gets even better, that WWE is going to figure out how to take old Monday Night Raw episodes and old WCW Nitro episodes and add fucking ads. I guarantee you're going to go back and when Steve Austin gave the first ever stunner to Vince McMahon, when Vince is on the mat like this, you're going to look over and it's going to say fucking Prime Energy. I think AI they're going to fucking add ads to Vince's stuff. When Mr. America was doing a lie detector test with Vince, you're going to look in the ring and it's going to say Great American Beer, brother. That's my prediction. They're gonna figure out ads upon ads. So I wouldn't be surprised if WWE, listen, they're now doing what we said about a year ago. Remember when we joked about a year ago? They said that I'm surprised that WWE is not making people pay to watch people do training. Like, hey, you could sit back and watch people train. And now they're doing that with the NIL tryouts, I think they're doing, or NX, I think NIL tryouts. But why not do that on location? This Monday on Raw, for $15,000, you could be the production guy and you can hand the championship to Roman. So Roman shows up with the Usos, rinse and repeat. Let's go right to the ring. Roman, too cool to, have the title with him. It's got to be handed to him. So he goes to the ring. Roman hits the ring and, Baltimore, acknowledge me. Jay's going to be in King of the Ring. He's going to win it. Acknowledge him. And then he tries to put over Big Jim, and he really didn't know what to say about Big Jim. But, acknowledge him. And then, the fans start chanting, Fatu, Fatu. So obviously they want him acknowledged as well. So Roman questions the twins, about not acknowledging him. Jey Uso, once again, pissed off, shades of when Jey used to get pissed off at Sami Zayn early on in the bloodline. And then, Jacob gets on the mic and he says, when it comes to Jey and Jimmy, do I listen to them? Hell no! And the fans pop. And then he says, and I recommend you go back and watch this. When Jacob Fatu said, the only person I acknowledge is the OTC, and he said, Roman Reigns. Go check out that response from the crowd. Very polite. I came off goofy. Very polite reaction. I don't think it came off sarcastic, but the crowd was kind of like, oh, come on, man. And Roman suddenly gets a box from ringside. And he pulls out another Ula Fala. And I'm not trying to make fun of it in any way. But when I looked at it, I couldn't figure out if it was filled with chestnuts or it was filled with figs. All right, if anybody out there ever eats figs, those light-colored figs or chestnuts, you ever have chestnuts on an open fire, Christmas time, you pull them out of the shells, it looks like a fucking, it looks like a string of chestnuts. He puts it over Jacob Fatu. And to me, this is why I love knowing history, because no one got my reference. I didn't see any other motherfuckers immediately picking up on it. You had this guy, Eric Andre, sitting at ringside. He's the one that did the movie with Cena that pops up on Netflix now. One of the funniest things that I saw tonight was as the bloodline leave the ring, because Roman officially now acknowledges Jacob Fatu as a member of the bloodline. And, it was really interesting because Roman, and before I get to Eric Andre, Roman cut a pretty damn good promo when he said the bloodline was always here. He brings up Alpha and Sika. The bloodline, that was the bloodline. He brings up Umaga. That was the bloodline. He brings up Yokozuna. He brings up Rikishi, got a nice pop. That was the bloodline. He looks at Jacob. He says, in 20 years, your kids teaming up with my kids. That is the bloodline. So he was running down the tree in a lot of ways, talking about the bloodline. And he says to Jacob, he says, you're not an insider. He says, welcome to the family business. Welcome to the bloodline. He puts the Ulafala over his head, and Roman and Jacob put up the ones. Jimmy then comes and put up the ones, and then Jey on the opposite side puts up the one. So they're all not really in sync, but you know what I mean. But the funniest thing that I saw, and I know probably a lot of people didn't interpret it that way, but when Jacob is walking down the rampway, he walks past Eric Andre. And Eric Andre, obviously he's supposed to touch Jacob Fatu, piss off Jacob Fatu so Jacob Fatu could attack him. So I'll get to the point where I said I was shocked that nobody brought this up online. Two things that happened on Raw tonight that I brought up, no one else did. And I knew that when I brought it up, no one would, quote unquote, acknowledge it because, oh, fuck, asshole figured it out before we did. When Jacob Fatu walked by and Eric Andre went to touch the Ula Fala, if you look at it, as he's like trying to touch the front of it, to me, it looked like remember when Shawn Michaels did that gesture, like, with somebody's nuts? Chestnuts. Those are chestnuts. I mean, literally, Jacob Fatu's wearing this thing, and you see him going like this. And I'm like, don't touch them like they're balls, but Jacob pulls him over the railway and brings him in the ring. And I was shocked that nobody figured it out. He umaga'd Eric Andre. He umaga'd him. What do I mean by that? Anybody remember Steve-O from Jackass? Anybody remember this segment on Monday Night Raw when Umaga fucking splashed Steve-O and he no-sold it? So fucking Umaga beat the fuck out of him on Raw. And then they posed in the back afterwards, and Steve-O still talks about it to this day. They redid that. And the interesting thing is, I think Eric Andre sold it better, but there was a moment, and it goes to show you that just because you're a good comedic guy or you're a good actor doesn't mean that you act good in a wrestling ring, because he's supposed to act unconscious in the ring or barely conscious. And there's a moment where, Roman is telling Jacob, don't do it. And then Jacob does the splash. And then he goes out of the ring and Roman pretty much, lets him do it one more time. And if you go back and watch it carefully, when Jacob starts proceeding to do it again, you look at Eric Andre and he's kind of like, he's laid out, but he's like looking around. And when he sees that he's climbing a rope, he like freezes like this, like he's trying to get in position, and it didn't look all that good. But it was better than Steve-O. It was better than Steve-O, and he nailed 2 splashes. And obviously this was done to promote the movie. Obviously this is a Netflix thing, but it was okay. For what it was okay. So, all right. We talked about this for a couple of weeks, and we talked about it last night. The outcome of this match was going to tell you the extent of Rhea Ripley's injury going into SummerSlam. If Rhea had no shot of competing at SummerSlam, it was either going to be Io challenging Liv, which a lot of people don't kind of feel it, or Io or Raquel Rodriguez was going to challenge Liv. And sure enough, Io Sky defeated Raquel Rodriguez tonight to advance to the Queen of the Ring final. Io is her, and she will do a phenomenal job in Saudi Arabia. I still believe that Io Sky is the one to win it. This match was very good, very physical, inside the ring, outside the ring. The finish was a little wonky, but it was enough. They were brawling right around the announcer's table, and as they brought it back to the ring, Raquel Rodriguez was in the ring, and Io Sky is outside the ring, climbs the apron. So as Raquel is grabbing Io to kind of pull her back in the ring, Io grabs Raquel's head and smashes it into the ring post. So now Raquel Rodriguez is acting disoriented. Io Sky proceeds to climb to the middle rope with Raquel climbing up also. And because Raquel was disoriented, Io was kind of able to hit a power slam on Raquel. It was kind of wonky if you watch it. It was more like she just dropped her, but then she hit the moonsault and got the victory. So Io Sky goes on to the Queen of the Ring finals. And, again, I hope it's her and Rhea Ripley. I think it's the best way to go, especially for storyline purposes. I think Rhea Ripley being challenged from a friend, I could see Rhea Ripley saying it's an honor to face you. I think it would be likewise from Io. I think that's the right way to go. And I think it gives the most intriguing match. Just like, again, I'm not all for Jey Uso winning King of the Ring, but out of anybody other than CM Punk returning, I don't know who would be Cody Rhodes' ideal opponent at SummerSlam, especially if Cody retains. Now, it's a possibility that Gunther wins the title Friday. I don't think so. I think Sammy will fuck it up. And it was also confusing today because they announced that Friday, the match is commercial free, or is it all SmackDown commercial free? I think the match is commercial free, and it's probably going to be the main event. So the final 20 minutes, 25 minutes is probably commercial free. I don't think the entire SmackDown is commercial free. There's no reason to do that. Especially when you think about the gaps and the lows that you have to fill. You do 2.5 hours of that, you're not going to put like Netflix ads on. So I think it's just a match that's commercial free, but we'll see what happens on Friday. So we had some backstage segments. One of them, did I get a picture? I'm pissed. I didn't get a picture. I thought I did. Liv Morgan was in the back with Danhausen. First, she's with the Judgment Day, and I told you guys yesterday this was going to be a bad night for the Judgment Day, and it was a bad night for the Judgment Day. First of all, Roxanne Perez did not soften up Charlotte Flair like she was supposed to. I know I'm going one step ahead, but Charlotte Flair defeated Roxanne Perez tonight with the figure 8. Excellent match. Some people are complaining that Roxanne is losing a few too many matches. No worries. She's got fucking 10, 15-year career ahead of her. Is barring injury and fuck up. So they got plenty of time. She's not, losing any value. But, the idea is, you think about Saudi Arabia. Who's going to go on? Liv Morgan or Charlotte Flair? And if I'm a betting person with Saudi Arabia and the big name marquee names, I think Saudi Arabia would rather have Charlotte Flair take on Io Sky than Liv Morgan take on Io Sky. I think for a lot of us, having Liv Morgan trying to be a double champion makes no sense because other people should have had that spot. But it's just the perception that Liv is greedy and she wants it all. And, the idea is if Liv Morgan wins Queen of the Ring, she doesn't have to defend her women's championship at SummerSlam. Instead, she gets the shot at the other women's championship at SummerSlam. I get it. It does make sense to an extent. But as far as Saudi Arabia goes, they want Charlotte Flair there. Absolutely. So I think it does come down to Charlotte Flair versus Io Sky. But backstage, Liv Morgan is with the Judgment Day, and they're focusing right now on Dominick, his match with Oba Femi, and Liv's match against Charlotte Flair on Friday. And Roxanne's job today was to soften up Charlotte, which really didn't work. Liv Morgan then meets with Danhausen, and she's wearing a Danhausen shirt, by the way. They pushed Danhausen hard tonight. I mean, you didn't see much Nick's footage, which I thought was kind of interesting. And as we expected, this was a no-brainer. People writing in capital letters, breaking news, Danhausen will be part of the Knicks parade Thursday. You think? Fucking Ben Stiller and everyone else that's huge with the Knicks is going to be in this parade. That wasn't news. That was common sense. But they really rode the Danhausen train tonight, and Liv is in the back with Danhausen. And, basically, she's hoping that, he can help her. And, Danhausen wants to be part of Liv's music career. He wants a lot of money. He wants this. He wants that. And she ends up getting annoyed. She walks off. And I think he called her Olivia. Olivia, I think he called her. Hey, Olivia. So, it was okay. It was all right. We had a pair of segments tonight on Raw with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. And it's basically the same promos that they've cut before. These two guys have fought before against each other. But I don't know if this is going to be the end of their matches against each other. Probably not, because they actually do work quite well together. And the house shows that they were doing recently were very well received. Mostly street fights. But once again, this is going to be a gimmick match, and it is going to be a steel cage match at Night of Champions. So Braun Breaker will take on Seth Rollins in Saudi Arabia in a steel cage. So that's what we have looking forward to. I wonder if Bronson Reed is close to a return. I don't know the progress, but we all know that Bronson Reed has dropped a shitload amount of weight. Bronson Reed looks like a beast right now. He looks like a fucking maniac. And I get it. There's some people out there like, oh, he's going to lose everything that is luster. What are you talking about? Having 100 pounds off your knees, off your ankles, off your thighs, off your spine is a good thing. And if any of you out there think that's a bad thing, then I challenge you. I challenge you to get get maybe like 2 sacks of potatoes, 10 pounds each. It's just 20 pounds. It's not even 100 pounds, 20 pounds. Get 2 sacks of potatoes, tie it around your arms, or just strap it to your back and just walk around for the next year or month with 10 pounds or 20 pounds of potatoes strapped to your back and see how that feels. Or better yet, just like grab one of your, if you have like a grandmother that's like 90 and she's half the size she used to be and she weighs like 110 pounds, just pick her up and say, Grandma, I want to play, I just want to do Ring Around the Rosie, or I want to pick you up and let's play horsey. And just walk around with her on your back. Or if you got a little kid, just play. Just say, hey, jump on my back. Let's walk around. I guarantee after 5 minutes, you're going to be like, oh, get this extra load of shit off my back. So Bronson Reed dropping this weight will help his life. And it all goes to show you that when people used to try to guilt people, accusing them of fat shaming because he's talking about Bronson Reed's physique, if there was nothing wrong with his physique, why did he do this? Right? If you think about it, I don't think it's healthy. For me too. I definitely need to lose. But Bronson Reed dropping his weight is very, very good for him. So Seth and Braun cut dueling pre-recorded promos. The Seth Rollins one was annoying. I tried to find a good picture of it, and for some reason the screen was like extra wide. And the funny thing is, Seth is looking this way. And I'm like, Seth, could you look in the camera for 1 second so I could use it as for the recap tonight? And he's looking this way. And then they showed another picture of him, and he was 30 feet in the back of the room. Literally, if I went into that corner, it was so, I don't know, I didn't like the camera work. Braun's was much better. Much better. So we do get another moment, which is interesting. Lara Vicaria is with Adam Pearce. And she's extremely excited because a match was made, and it will happen next week. And by the way, a reminder, next week's Raw, remember, we told you about a month ago that June, they're going to be overseas. There's only going to be one Raw that they're going to be back to their normal schedule, and that was tonight, Baltimore. Wasn't it weird? They were in Italy. They were in France. They were in England. Then he came back to Baltimore. He's right back to overseas again. And then Saudi Arabia. I don't know. I mean, it was kind of why did they go back to the States? Did some people have to maybe I don't know, change their water in their house or water the garden? Everybody gets to go home for 2 days and you got to go right back overseas again. But Lara gets a match next week. And we found out that next week, Lara Vicaria and Bayley will challenge the tag team champions of Brie Bella and Paige. That'll be next Monday from London. Special start time at 2 p.m. I am undecided if I will go live at 5. I'm thinking about it. We'll see. We'll see. I don't want to do it too early, but at the same time, I don't want to do it too late. So maybe we'll do it at 6. 6 is kind of a time that no one does their shows with. And I want to see how many other podcasts suddenly say, I'm going to do it at 6. So I will let everybody know during the week. By Wednesday night Dynamite, I'll let everybody know. But I wonder if Nikki Bella is going to be able to do Ciao Bella. Ciao Bella. I don't know what they say in England. I don't think they say ciao. But remember, Nikki Bella wanted to do that horrendous Ciao Bella idea in Italy. So the gondola thing was the best. So Lara Vicaria gets her tag team title shot. Then we see a little interaction with LA Knight and Adam Pearce. And again, I'm just not feeling 90% of what LA Knight is doing. He still thinks that Adam Pearce is in the back pocket of the bloodline. He doesn't trust Adam Pearce. And I'm like, this is all just dumb. Especially when Adam Pearce is doing this with the fingers, and LA Knight is looking at the fingers come on, man. It's just stupid, goofy. So we would get a segment in the ring with LA Knight momentarily, which was funny because he was looking for Baltimore. He had to go to Baltimore. But we also had a segment with Chad Gable. Chad Gable was in the back and, talking a little bit more about, his respect now for Lucha Libre. And he also says that there's more people that he needs to apologize to. And as he walks off, he sees Maxine Dupree talking to Austin Theory again. Maxine Dupree just freezes. And there's a little bit of awkward moments there, but obviously Chad Gable is looking to mend a lot of fences that were torn. I don't think Chad Gable did that bad to those people, but it'll be interesting once Maxine Dupree turns heel. Don't know if she'll join the Vision. It's got to go somewhere, obviously. But then we had a match, and I was very surprised at how this went down. Chad Gable beat Rusev. I don't think there was any dispute there. I was very surprised that they had Rusev tap out, because that's something with Rusev. You would think maybe a fruit roll-up, maybe an angle slam, maybe something other than the ankle lock, but he put the ankle lock on Rusev, and Rusev fucking tapped. And after the match was over, Ethan Page shows up, a little post-match beatdown, and this time around, Chad Gable is saved by Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee. Because remember, Chad Gable made the save last week. They pulled the mask off of Rey's head. So, crowd was loving it. The match with Rusev was tremendous. I don't feel like Rusev is getting buried, because Rusev, he's a legit guy and works well. And WWE, you could tell, is not just using him as job material. But the problem is they got to have other people that could be in this role. I don't think they should just be, all right, we need a good asshole to, put on a good match and end up, having someone else go over. And him and Ethan Page seem like suddenly they're the de factos to do that. But it was fine in the end. I didn't really have much of a problem with it. We did see a backstage segment with Roman Reigns and the Usos. And, this was kind of because, they're in the back and, they're questioning, Roman with the Ula Fala and all this other stuff. And Roman's talking about that he called an audible and this and that. And Jimmy decides that he's going to, this obviously LA Knight is brought up again with this. And I'll get to LA Knight in a moment. But, they need to address Jacob. They need to address LA Knight. And as we saw, LA Knight was in the back with Adam Pearce, and LA Knight goes to the ring. And my God, thank you, JS, for bringing this up. Do you know, ever since I Get Skeeved at Joe Hendry, remember that song we did? I Get Skeeved at Joe Hendry. Ever since we did that serenade, he's not been on TV. Are they doing it so I can't sing it? Or did we send a message? Because it's quite bizarre. We opened up that show serenading Joe Hendry, and I have no problem with Joe Hendry. I just thought it was funny. But I remember what we said. I was very concerned how they were using Joe Hendry. Very concerned. He's not a Danhausen. And he also is not Elias. And, the Logan stuff, Paul, can we fire Logan Paul? It got old so quickly. It's like commercial break. Like Joe Hendry has got to sign. I wonder if they have commercial break contracts. Listen, we're not going to use you on Raw. We're not going to use you on SmackDown, but maybe we could work out a deal where we use you during commercial breaks. But it is interesting. Ever since that night we serenaded, I Get Skeeved at Joe Hendry. He hasn't been on TV. So we cursed him. You are cursed. So LA Knight is going to take care of business. LA Knight hits the ring and tells us how he had to go to Baltimore. Talks multiple times. I have to go to Baltimore because Baltimore is his home. We've talked about that before. He brings up the bloodline. He brings up what happened on Friday. Talks about Solo Sikoa. Convinced that Solo Sikoa is back with the bloodline, helping Jay. And then Jimmy comes out there. And this is basically what we had. Jimmy gets on the mic and he's basically saying, you know, LA Knight, you already know this. Solo doesn't ride with them anymore. LA Knight brings up what happened on Friday, and Jay's music hits. So Jay comes out to the ring and he says, Jimmy was right. We told you over and over and over and over again that Solo is on his own. And Jay says to LA Knight, he says, but I'm out here for one reason, and one reason only. And he says, I beat your ass one-on-one, and I need you to acknowledge me. And if you go back and you watch that crowd reaction, I don't think they're enjoying all this acknowledgement shit. Because when Jacob extremely professed his love for Roman earlier, fans kind of like rolling the eyes pop. And then when Jay tells LA Knight to acknowledge him, it was kind of like the roll of the eyes, you know, response again. And crowd was not extremely thrilled. So LA Knight looks at Jay and he channels his inner Stone Cold, because it sure felt like Stone Cold from back in the day. And remember, we talked about the first stunner. Remember Steve Austin's promo to Vince? I appreciate the fact that the World Wrestling Federation care. And he says, I also appreciate the fact that, hell, you could just kiss my ass. And he stuns Vince. LA Knight did it almost identical tonight. Jay wants to be acknowledged. And LA Knight is basically saying, you know, it's a proposition. And he knows that the deck is stacked against him and this and that. So he looks at his finger. He goes like this. And he says, yeah, I acknowledge you. I acknowledge that you could kiss my ass. And it felt like what Steve Austin did. I'm not knocking it, but it felt like he channeled his inner Steve Austin and cut that promo. By the way, someone else channeled something also that we will get into. That I wrote it on X and nobody responded. I'm like, yeah, we picked up on it and they didn't. So what ends up happening is Jacob Fatu hits the ring. Jacob Fatu puts the tongue in death grip on LA Knight. And the crowd is chanting, Fatu, Fatu. So it was kind of bizarre because the fans were kind of favoring LA Knight over Jey Uso, but then they were favoring Jacob Fatu over LA Knight, which is an interesting dynamic because, of course, we all are enjoying Jacob Fatu. I didn't think he would have this unwavering support, you know, like based on who he's mingling with in the ring. You know, remember when we had like Gunther and Solo Sikoa, or you have this, like those types of confrontations, you're curious, like, I wonder which way the fans are going to go. And they were cheering for Solo. You know, so it's pretty interesting to see how the crowd reacts sometimes with some of the people. But, you know, obviously they leave Jey Uso laying. So now we get something that I took notice of it immediately. I don't know if any of you else did as well, but Austin Theory is, you know, going to come out. But before he does, Javon Evans hits the ring. And he is talking about Friday's King of the Ring semifinal against Jey Uso. And he's talking about getting bouncy and this and that. And, you know, he a little bit more serious in this promo. He's taking this very, very seriously. And he wants to go on to Night of Champions in King of the Ring final and win. So all of a sudden, Austin Theory's music hits. Actually, no, it wasn't even Austin Theory's music. It was Logan Paul. Logan Paul's music hits. And I don't want to give it away the way I want to give it away, but Logan Paul hits the ring, and Logan Paul is with Austin Theory. And Logan Paul looks at Javon Evans, and if you look at my graphic, you'll see exactly where I'm going with this. Logan Paul looks at Javon Evans and says, there's no denying it, you are a generational talent. And Logan Paul has a proposition for Javon Evans. Join the vision. And for anybody that is looking at the video right now, that is not an error. You see a picture of Kofi Kingston with Javon Evans. Why? They fucking did identical what the New Day was doing with Javon Evans. Right down to the, you're a generational talent, and we want you to join the vision. And Javon Evans is not interested. And Logan Paul says, that wasn't a question, that was a mandate. Remember, the New Day were trying to get Javon Evans. It was the identical segment that they did with the New Day. And this time around, it's Logan Paul and Austin Theory. So Logan Paul is mad because Javon Evans says, hell no, I'm not joining the vision. And what happened? It led to a match with Kofi Kingston versus Javon Evans. Only difference was you didn't have Grayson Waller with a fucking spear towards the end of the match when Javon Evans went for the fucking, his, OG cutter. So we end up having a match with Austin Theory and Javon Evans, and right at the very end where Javon's going to go for an OG cutter, here comes Braun with a spear, hitting Javon in midair. And it was tremendous. Crowd was popping, dogs were barking. Then all of a sudden, the Street Profits show up, and they make the save for Javon Evans. So now, next week, on Monday Night Raw, we will have the Street Profits challenging Braun Breaker and Austin Theory for the WWE World Tag Team Championships. I'm undecided now if we will see a title change. You almost feel like something maybe major will go down. Maybe Seth Rollins helps these guys win the titles, and that adds additional heat to the match with Braun Breaker at Saudi Arabia. But the Street Profits are getting their title shot next week in London, England. So, good setup. Don't have any issues there. So then we get a backstage segment again with Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu. And here, Roman basically says to Jacob Fatu, I understand you. And he hopes that Jacob understands him. And as long as they understand each other, that's the most important thing. And Roman goes to hug Jacob Fatu a little bit, and he whispers something in his ear. Now, whatever it was like 3 or 4 words. And it's probably something like, I love you, Jacob. It's probably what it is. It was literally like it was 3 or 4 words. Like people online, what did he say? Everyone wanted Roman say in Jacob's ear. What do you think he said? I want a burrito. I got to take a shit. Like it was 4 words. Like I have a heart on. I'm tired. When does the show end? Are we going for coffee? Go get the car. You smell. Use some, use some armpit spray, deodorant. Like what? Like, really? You like your chestnuts? Like, what could he possibly said? Probably, I love you, Jacob. It's got to be it. Or you must acknowledge Jay, which they're not doing yet. Can't. Too soon. And I think Jacob would, as he's hugging Roman, if Roman whispers his ear and says, you have to acknowledge Jay. I think Jacob, I have to take my glasses off for this one. I think Jacob would be like what? So we get to the main event. And it's exactly what we thought it was going to be. Dominick comes out first with JD McDonough. Oba comes out with his full-blown entrance. Crowd is into this big time. This match is not going to be much of anything. But early on, you get a little bit of stalling from Dominick Mysterio. Then out of nowhere, Dominick gets a little flurry of offense. Gets a cheap shot on Oba. Oba is a little distracted, ends up hitting a 619, ends up hitting a couple of moves. And you got some people, oh my God, Dominick, no. You're not going to have Dominick stop Oba's fucking momentum. The only person that's going to stop Oba's momentum is Brock Lesnar. That's who's going to stop the momentum. No one else. So what ends up happening, J.D. McDonough tries to get involved because Oba's starting to get his, comeuppance, starting to get his composure back. JD tries to get involved, fails. Dominick tries to continue his offense, fails. Oba starts tossing around Dominick like a salad, hits the fall from grace. That's it. Match is over. Probably a minute and a half, if that. But after the match was over, Oba gets on the mic. And as we said earlier, he is one match away, because he's going to the finals now. He is one match away to be king of the ring, and he will get his crown. And then SummerSlam obviously is in his picture. But then he does what he's been doing for a couple of weeks, and this is seed planting, and there is no other way to look at it. This is to keep Brock Lesnar in the back of your mind, because Brock Lesnar is going to cost. He's got to cost Oba Femi King of the Ring, because he talks about how he keeps calling out Brock and Brock is not there, and Oba's going to be king, and Brock was just the man who bowed down to Oba. Just every week, Brock Lesnar, I called you up, Brock Lesnar. Where are you, Brock Lesnar? I'm going to kill you, Brock Lesnar. Oh, keep poking that fucking bear. Right now, Brock Lesnar is calling fucking JetBlue or fucking Air Saudi and saying, yeah, give me a couple of tickets, first class, Saudi Arabia. They are feeding the obvious to all of us. Whoever, and even he said it, whether it's Jay or it's Javon, I will win King of the Ring. I will be crowned. Brock Lesnar. Blah, 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 blah. Brock Lesnar. Blah, 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 blah. Brock Lesnar will ruin it for Oba. And then all Brock's got to do is just put up 3 fingers. That's it. And that sets up SummerSlam. And we go off the air. Not a bad Raw. Not a bad Raw. I think everybody involved tonight, there wasn't a lot of throwaway shit. I think if we were going to throw anything away, it was just the interaction with Danhausen and Liv Morgan. It was just kind of I get it. We had a nice conversation yesterday about Danhausen, not only in the WWE, but the perception of him outside of WWE, outside of professional wrestling in a whole. Danhausen is the official mascot for the WWE. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. He is the official mascot for the WWE. Back in the 70s, the San Diego Chicken was this massive, popular mascot in Major League Baseball, to the point that the San Diego Chicken not only would show up at different baseball stadiums, not even for the team that he represented, but that motherfucker got his ass on baseball cards. Now today, anything is on a baseball card. But back in the 70s, when you had serious, legitimate sets before the junk wax era, you literally, as you're pulling packs, you open up packs oh, look, I got Reggie Jackson. Oh, look, I got Thurman Munson. I got the fucking San Diego Chicken. Fuck is this? And he's literally posed on the grass. It's that's how popular he was. This is kind of what the San Diego Chicken was. The only difference is Danhausen talks, and Danhausen's always making these demands for gold and for money and for deals and contracts, and he's a shyster. But everybody likes him. Everybody likes him. So I hope everybody liked this show, because I am going to exit. So I appreciate everybody who hung out tonight. Definitely leave your feedback. Some of the things we talked about earlier. Anybody has any questions, you can post it in the comments section. I do read it. Everybody reads it as well. Let me know what your thoughts are on Monday Night Raw. And what time is it? It's 12:40 in the morning, so I got to go pop my Lunesta and get my ass to bed. But I will be back this Wednesday for Wednesday Night Dynamite. That'll be a fun show. We would have some things to get into. There's a few AEW things that I held off with tonight. Some additional research is required, especially with Grand Slam Mexico. Tune in Wednesday, you'll know why there. So Wednesday Night Dynamite will return. Then Thursday, I'll be on Patreon. Joey won't be back this week. For those that don't know, last Thursday, Joey924, my former co-host back in the early to mid 2000s, he came on Thursday night with me and we did 4.5 hours. We recorded 4.5 hours. We were planning on doing 2. And the conversation just kept going, an awesome conversation. And we had a good time. So 4.5 hours we did Thursday. But this Thursday I will be solo. And I'm going to, everybody who knows Trez, I'm going to be reaching out to her next week or this weekend to see if she wants to come on in the very near future to do an episode together. And we'll go into the weekend. And the weekend back to the same routine. And like I said, later this week, I'll let everybody know what time I'm going to be streaming live next Monday. Sunday's normal schedule, 8:05 p.m. Eastern. So that's pretty much it. So my friends, thank you as always for your support. Make sure you check out my other friends out there and keep supporting the website, wrestling-news.com. Download all the shows because that not only helps me pay the bills a little bit, they're free, but it also keeps us in the stats. And the higher we are in the stats, the more visible we are, and the more we can ruffle feathers. I don't like to ruffle feathers, but I take pride that when we do them, we do it with substance. We don't just call shit out just to call shit out. We usually have stuff to back it up. So, and by the way, I do want to say one thing in closing. Some people were trying to provoke me to say some shit about Dave Meltzer yesterday because Dave called me out on my calculations last week, questioning the Raw on Netflix rating. That's the same week with Mask versus Mask. And he basically wrote something sarcastic. He's like, you should check your numbers again. Like I made a mistake. And I ignored it. And for the people out there that were really questioning why I ignored it, I'll answer it this way. And anybody goes on my X account, you'll see what he wrote. Dave said that Raw was actually 3 hours and 38 minutes. Told me, recheck my calculation because I said it was 1 hour and 47 minutes. He said, no, it was 3 hours and 38 minutes. Dave is actually right, but he's not right in the way you think. 3 hours and 38 minutes was Raw and commercials plus Mask versus Mask. 1 hour and 47 minutes is Raw without commercials. That is the number that Netflix is using to sell advertisements to advertisers. They show the length of Raw without commercials, and then they present spots. And then they tell you how many spots are available and how many commercial breaks there are during an episode of Raw. He, for some reason, has this obsession of including commercials. And I think the reason why he does that is because the longer you could say Raw is, and you divide that number into the total hours viewed, it generates a lower overall viewership number. And I'll give you a good example of it. And you could play this for him, and it won't do nothing. But let's just pretend, let's use even numbers to be easy here. Let's just say 5 million hours watched. 5 million hours watched, all right? So now let's say 5 million hours watched and Raw was 100 minutes, all right? 100 minutes. You divide 100 minutes into 5 million hours watched, you get 5 million, 5 million hours watched. All right, let's say Raw was an hour. Yeah, let's make it very easy. Let's say Raw was 1 hour and you have 5 million hours watched. You divide 1 hour into 5 million, you get 5 million viewers. Now, let's say you say Raw is 2 hours with 5 million hours watched. Well, you just doubled the length of the show. And since there's only 5 million viewers, 5 million hours watched, that means it was 2.5 million viewers. See, 1 hour Raw, 5 million hours, 5 million viewers. 2 hour Raw, 5 million hours, 2.5 million viewers. Make it a 3 hour Raw, divide it into 5 million hours, you get even lower number. So I think what he is doing is he's including the commercials to make the total length of Raw longer. So he uses that longer number and divide it into the total hours watched. And he says, can't be 2.5 million. Raw was 3 hours and 38 minutes. No, it was 1 hour and 47 minutes. No, it wasn't. It was 2 hours. No, that's because you're adding commercials. And you're adding El Grande Americano versus El Grande Americano, which was commercial free. So when Netflix presents Raw and says this is the length of the show, they present an hour and 47 minutes, which was the length of Raw that week without commercials. That's what they present to advertisers. That's what's in the top 10. That's how they calculate it. That's it. There's no dispute here. I don't care. Listen, it's almost like you could either use a child or you could use Fred Munster from the Munsters. Remember when Fred used to jump up and down? No, was it Fred Munster? I don't know. But remember, it's like, damn it, 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 damn it. I don't care how many times Dave Meltzer jumps up and down like a child. You can't suddenly make Netflix say, yeah, we actually do incorporate commercials. It's just, he insists that it's his way or no way. And honestly, man, I'm not fighting with the guy, but it's almost like, how dare someone of not his stature tell him what actually it is? He doesn't want to learn. He doesn't want to grow knowledge. It's either the book of Meltzer or if it's nothing. He put those betting odds out there for King of the Ring, and it was a figment of his fucking imagination. Now I'm getting mad, and I don't want to get mad when I'm trying to go to sleep. So Dave, please, for one moment, understand when I give you information, it's not because I'm saying I'm better than you. I subscribe to you. You don't subscribe to me. That's for a reason. All right? But sometimes you need to take in information and learn from it, and not just insist that it's your way or the highway. So, all right, I'm out of here. Much love. Talk to you all again soon. Bye.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.